All right, let's hit the field.
All right.
Just wanted to talk, that's all.
Pitchers and catchers are officially back in camp, and that means the Yankees' first big competition of the spring has begun. The candidates: Jose Trevino, a 2022 Platinum Glove winner for Best Defensive Player in the American League, who's coming back from wrist surgery and currently dealing with a calf strain. Ben Rortvedt, who helped Gerrit Cole get over the finish line in his 2023 Cy Young campaign and had a .400 on-base percentage in the minor leagues. And last but not least, Austin Wells, the Yankees' first-round pick in 2020, who showed impressive power during his cup of coffee last season. Joining me live to talk over the Yankees' options behind the dish is Erik Kratz, former big league catcher, podcaster for Foul Territory,
And one hell of a model American.
Baseball is back, and this is NYY Recaps.
There it goes. See ya.
Welcome to Yankee Stadium.
New York City.
Just when they thought I was out, they pull me back in.
All right. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back, and welcome to my guest, Erik Kratz, who just got back from an African safari. Did you bring me that endangered rhino tusk that I asked you for?
No, I got caught behind the eagle that I had killed up in Colorado.
Oh, that's a shame. Would look good in my garage in a box. So I want to set the stage for everybody because the Yankees have three catchers with different skill sets. Jose Trevino, obviously a defensive first catcher, Platinum Glove winner, as we mentioned in the intro. Austin Wells probably has a future at first base, but right now, he's coming up as a catcher. He's got a lot of power. He hit some absolute nukes last year, also, as we saw in the intro. And then we've got Ben Rortvedt, who caught Gerrit Cole's final few starts of the season last year, and a lefty with a good on-base percentage, good eye, which translated over the major leagues. So if you're a Yankees fan and if you're a Yankees coach, there's a pretty good competition this spring. What are your thoughts so far?
I don't know that it's necessarily a competition. I see what you're doing there, but I'm going to bury the lead here, and the rest will just be discussions. They're going to need all three of them. The catching position, we've already seen Jose's down with a little calf strain. I don't think it's a big deal. I think it'll be a few weeks that he just kind of gets his reps in and isn't running around the field here at the beginning of spring training, which really doesn't matter because he should slot in as your starting catcher. Austin Wells should slot in as a power threat, and Rortvedt will slot in as, in my opinion, he should be the guy that is on the bench until Jose can't get the job done. And I don't know that you're going to sit there and go, well, how do you have Austin Wells in AAA with his offense and everything? This team does not need offense. This team needs defense. Not saying Austin Wells can't provide it, just giving him the everyday at-bats isn't going to be there. And so without him getting the everyday at-bats, to me, his receiving will suffer. But I see the benefit of having him around Jose. But the reality is you have 162 games. Three guys catching 162 games, you need to be able to piecemeal the season together with these guys.
So I'm going to pull up just some notes on these guys. Trevino, obviously an outstanding catcher for the Yankees 2 years ago. Last year was hurt. I love him behind the dish. We were talking offline that he's an excellent defender, and the Yankees obviously need that. But last year, I have Jose Trevino twice. I meant to put Ben Rortvedt in the bottom one, so I'll cross that off. But we have the lack of runs last year that cost the Yankees probably a playoff spot. Doesn't it make sense to try and develop one of your younger hitters?
It does make sense, but the reality is this ain't the position that you want to develop them at. The catching position, because if you have a guy, and don't get me wrong, when we're talking about developing his defense and his defense isn't up to big league standards, I'm comparing it to Jose Trevino. You had him up there twice for a reason. Right. Platinum Glove. That needs to be mentioned twice. At a premium position, we're talking about a Platinum Glove. Let's say it was a Platinum Glove at shortstop.
Right.
you would be paying that player $300+ million. At the catching position, it comes in even more valuable than that. So I'm comparing Austin Wells not to other big league catchers. I'm comparing him to playing in the place of Jose Trevino. And I don't think he's there yet. Watching him catch, seeing what he can do, I love his skill set. I love his ability to move the ball in the zone. That's where a lot of Jose's value comes in. I need to see him be a little more athletic behind the dish. I need to see him be able to move around back there the way that Jose, he's bigger than Jose, so he has a little bit more difficult of a time moving around back there. But again, I'm comparing him to Jose Trevino, Platinum Glove winner in his last full season. That is nothing to shake a stick at. Other Platinum Glove winners were Manny Machado, Nolan Arenado. Like, we're talking about elite status. And if you're going to develop him, let him get the reps in the minor leagues. He's always going to hit for power. This team does not lack for power.
All right, so let's assume that you're right and that it's a competition between Rortvedt and Wells for the backup job, and Austin Wells probably goes to AAA. What is Jose Trevino's responsibility this spring, given that he's also coming back from a calf injury and an arm injury? What's his responsibility to help tutor these young guys?
I mean, that's just the role of the starting catcher. And that's where I think there's a value in naming him the starting catcher. If this is a competition, you're going to go into camp and you're going to see them kind of hanging around Jose Trevino, kind of letting the guys see what it takes to be a big league catcher. Both those guys are big league catchers, without a doubt. Ben and Austin are both big league catchers. It's an opportunity to give them insight into, how do you deal with Garrett Cole? Some people will be like, well, it doesn't really matter. Garrett Cole's Garrett Cole. It's not true. You have to be able to deal with Garrett Cole the same way you have to be able to deal with Clay Holmes. You have to be able to deal with, hey, you know what, guys? Like, this is what we're going to do in this situation in the big leagues. We create a game plan to do this stuff. And he has so much experience, not only in game, but prepping for those games. And that's the biggest thing. They have meetings in spring training. Everybody catches pens. Everybody catches live BPs and stuff like that. You go into those meetings and you say, okay, who did you catch yesterday? Jose caught Clay Holmes and Garrett Cole. Talk about them. And you just hear how he talks, and just being around him when he's going through that work will give them the insight that they need.
So considering that Austin Wells has some collegiate experience at first base, the Yankees don't have a lot of depth at first base. Rizzo's coming back from that injury. Would you give Wells some time at first base this spring, or would you say, look, you're our future catcher, focus exclusively on catching, you're going to be an everyday catcher wherever you are? How would you handle that?
I think everything you just said will happen. You will be an everyday catcher everywhere that you are. And that's why, in my opinion, you're sending him down to AAA, because you don't have at-bats at first base. Rizzo's not coming back from like a knee injury. He's not coming back from something that you need to mitigate that time that he spends at first base. Unlike catching, where you need 3 guys to complete 162 games, first base, you need Anthony Rizzo to come back and play 159 games.
Yeah,
the Yankees win the World Series if Anthony Rizzo plays 159 or more games. That's a lot to be said. The guy's 32? Okay, I was going to say 33. He's such a young old guy. He's been in the league for so long, but that is a super huge value for the Yankees. Can he step in? Can Austin Wells step in at first base? Absolutely.
You're right. He's actually 34, so I'm wrong on that.
Okay.
I'm going to put up his numbers. Last year, obviously, his fielding is still fantastic, 80th percentile in Major League Baseball. Still hits the ball in the barrel of the bat, sweet spot, and very good range. But it was the timing that was killed basically by his concussion syndrome. Have you ever had a concussion? I'm sure as a catcher, somebody plowed into you. No?
No,
I find it hard to believe nobody's ever shaken the brain in that big old dome.
maybe there's a lot of protection in there, or maybe there's just not a lot of brain to shake. But there was times when I had like the instant symptom of like a concussion, collision at the plate, everything except for like a tunnel like this is what I could see. And then, but by the time I like stood up, jogged over to the dugout, it was like, whoop, everything just opened back up. So no, I never had a diagnosed concussion.
You know, it's interesting how medical stuff works out like that. My wife takes such good care of herself, and she is always sick. I eat gummy bears like 3 bags a day, and I never get sick. I'm never hurt. It's weird how that works out. But, all right. Offensive catchers seem to be a thing in Major League Baseball the last few years. You know, we got Rushman coming up. He's fantastic. Yainer Diaz with Houston is unbelievable. JT Realmuto, been around a while, but still obviously a big force. Do you see that as becoming more of a trend in Major League Baseball? It seems like for a long time, it was just guys who could catch, and then you had 1 or 2 guys who could hit, the Pudge Rodriguez and, maybe, Jorge Posada, somebody like that. But it seems like more and more it's guys who can mash.
It's guys who can mash because that's what teams want. As much as they tell you, it's a defensive first position. The only teams that are saying that are the teams that don't have somebody that can play defense at that position. So they're like, we gotta, and all the guys you mentioned are also elite behind the dish. You're talking about Adley, who absolutely gets after it back there. Maybe one of the best game callers in the game for being so young. The way he controls everything back there. And, yeah, he mashes. But we're talking about a guy that could, if he stays healthy, be a Hall of Famer. JT Realmuto, Hall of Famer. Yainer Diaz. Defense didn't really play. I'm not saying he's not a good defender. I'm saying at the time they had a really good defender in Martin Maldonado. He didn't get back there. So there's a give and take all the time. Would the Yankees love a Adley Rutschman behind a dish? Yeah, I'm sure they would, but they didn't suck good enough because they got they couldn't get a first pick overall. They kept making the playoffs, so they weren't getting good picks. Very few Adley Rutschmans come along. Is the position changing? One time I got fired from one of my 14 teams I got fired from, and the manager said, because I was liked where I was and everything. And the manager said, yeah, you know what? He was one of the elite defenders, but his spot still has to come up in the lineup 4 times. So, you know what? Teams want it all. And the catching position, if you win a World Series with a defensive catcher behind there, you're just hoping that spot in the lineup doesn't hurt you.
I remember Charles Johnson. He was like the ultimate defensive catcher. I think he won a World Series with the Marlins. He was my favorite catcher ever to watch that wasn't a Yankee. Just an absolute beast behind the plate. You remember him?
Oh, absolutely. It was the 97 team that he won the World Series with. Yep.
And then he ended up with the Orioles after that. So we got to see him a lot in the AL East. So that was towards the end of his career, but he was good. I just had a comparison that I wanted to bring up. The swing of Nick Johnson versus the swing of Austin Wells. Do you see the comparison there? I definitely feel like there's a little bit there.
I feel like I can't get that out of my head. And I don't know if it's because of the mustache. The mustache gets me. I think Nick Johnson, his bat stays in the zone a little bit longer. Austin Wells has a little bit more of a steep angle, so he goes through the zone a little different. If you would watch, Nick's that's high praise if you think he's going to be able to hit like Nick. I think that's the issue that Austin's going to have is he needs to be able to consistently put the barrel on the ball because you see what he can do, but it's the consistent path through the zone that, Nick Johnson's a plus 300 hitter in the big league. So
right.
That's a difference, but it's a similar swing, but I think the mustache, it's like saying one bald guy. It's like saying me and Brett Gardner look alike. We're both bald. That's it.
I'm going to join the club pretty soon. I actually bought one of those head shavers because, it's starting to thin out. I'm wearing my hat and my headphones, so I can't show you, but it's starting to go, man. And I told my wife, I just wanted to prepare her. I said, one of these days you're going to come home from work and it's all going to be gone. Like, I had shaved it down pretty low my last time. It was a short buzz cut, and I told her, I said, one of these times you're going to come home and it's just going to be a reflective surface. Do you remember when you made that decision?
I did. I do remember. It was 2013. Pete Orr, we were in the clubhouse in a rain delay in New York we were playing against the Mets, and Pete Orr goes, I think it's time, bud. And I'm like, what? And he had been shaving his head for a while. He's like, I think it's time. He's like, go for it. So we went into the bathroom, went no guard style, never looked back. In 2019 is when I started bicking it, started razoring it. Oh, I haven't even flinched. The razor is the way to go. You don't even go down to the no guard. Just go razor. You won't be disappointed.
I feel like I got to tone up my body first. I don't want to be a fat bald guy. I want to be a in shape bald guy, right? And I'm about 215 right now. I think my target weight's about 190. So I gotta cut back on the spaghetti for a little while and the 3 bags of gummy worms a day, and then 6 months of that, and I'll be ready.
Nope. Don't cut back on it, because once you cut back on it, then you're gonna lose all your muscle mass, and you're still gonna have a dad bod. Then you'll just have potato dad bod. Go full tilt exercise. Just go hard in the paint. Just all right. 1 hour of sweat city, and that's it.
Well, I want to ask something of you because, as a lot of people know on this channel, and they probably watch Foul Territory, I'm on every day with you guys before the show. So when that time comes, just let me know. Derek, it's time. If you're ever watching me on the webcam, on the Zoom call, and you say, all right, I'm seeing a little too much of Derek's ring light on his upper parietal region, they just say, hey, it's time. It's time. And then the next day, I promise. All right.
If you haven't watched Foul Territory, I say it all the time on Foul Territory, but NYY Recaps, you need to know. If you know anybody with a bad haircut, balding, like kind of trying to keep it around, or just a terrible like Manny Machado type of haircut, just know he doesn't have any friends. That person does not have any friends, because if you have friends, they will tell you that's a brutal haircut. It's time to cut it. So D, I will definitely tell you.
Absolutely, because I don't really have any other friends, to be honest. When you podcast every single day, it's hard to maintain friendships. So all right, so we talked about the Yankees catchers here. I want to talk about just in general as a coach. You've been asked many, many times probably to coach and to lead some of these people. What are some things that you would stress to a young catcher like Austin Wells, like Ben Rortvedt, to help them make the transition from the minor leagues to the major leagues, to help them become better players?
Just be engaged. The engagement factor is so huge. As a prospect coming up, and Ben isn't as much of a prospect as Austin is, but being engaged sometimes is a new thing, in the sense that, like, as a prospect, you go and you're like, well, I just got to go out and hit. I'm going to go hit. Like, how am I supposed to be engaged? Like, I can't go catch bullpens. I can't go do the things that I see like a backup in the big leagues do, something that I was able to do throughout my career. But being engaged means if you're starting 4 days and sitting the 5th day, even if you're DHing, go down and catch the pen. Go down and maybe just watch the pen. If you're really that exhausted, go down and watch the pen. And this is so easy to do in the minor leagues because you're better than the other players in the minor leagues. That's why you are a big league prospect. It will not affect your play. But what will affect your play once you get to the big leagues to really make an impact is how engaged you are with those big leaguers. It's kind of like learning how to be married. Like, people don't just get married and like, oh wow, I'm freaking good at this. No, like you engage, you talk, you create that relationship with somebody that you want to be around all the time. That's what you're doing with your pitchers. That's what you're doing if Austin Wells gets traded for Dylan Cease at the break. He's going to have to learn to get to know those pitchers and be engaged with the White Sox pitchers. It's no different than when he's in AAA. If he's pissed he's in AAA, he's got to be engaged, or else he's just not going to be able to create that relationship that Adley Rutschman creates and is the reason that the team does not lose when he's behind the dish. It's that relationship, engagement, and all the other physical stuff too. You have to do all that other stuff.
Right. Well, that's a good point. As a catcher in the big leagues, you took a role on kind of being a team leader on the back of the bus on road trips and things like that. You get guys to sing and all that stuff. I was wondering, did anybody ever make you sing when you were a kid or when you were just coming up? Did they ever put you on the spot on the bus or in the clubhouse or make you dress funny or anything like that?
It was the front of the bus. The back of the bus was where people were hiding, or you'd have to sit in the crapper when you didn't sing well. Did anybody ever make me do it? Well, when I was a rookie, I was 30 years old, so that was kind of odd. And then my second road trip in the big leagues, the Pirates had traded everybody, so I had the least amount of service time, but I was the oldest guy on the team, so figure that one out. And then the next day, they traded for Chan-Ho Park, and then I got fired, and then I got sent down to AAA. But I did sing on the front of the bus, and I didn't know I was supposed to sing. They just called me up, and I sang "Clean Up." Did you ever have that? You ever have that song with kids? Clean up, everybody, everywhere. Clean up, everybody. Do your share.
I don't have kids, so I don't know that song. And my house is immaculate, by the way, because I'm a neat freak. So yeah, we don't know that song, but yeah.
But
yeah.
I did sing. I enjoy singing in the front of the bus. I wrote several songs, including 2020. I wrote a song for Aaron Boone. Asked me to give a speech before one of the series in the playoffs to get the team pumped up. And I'm like, these guys are big leaguers. They don't need to get pumped up. I was like, I'm going to write a song. So I wrote a song to the words or to the tune of Hey There, Delilah. I think it's called Hey There, Delilah, or Delilah. You know the one? He's like, hey there, Delilah, what's it like in New York City? So
I listened to Biggie and Tupac. I'm sorry.
That was what was in my car when I was growing up, or when I first started driving. Biggie and Tupac.
Right, those are mine. So I don't know if you heard this today. Corey Kluber signed with the Yankees as a special advisor. Did you ever catch Corey Kluber or know him at all?
In spring training.
What's he going to bring?
I did with Cleveland. I was in spring in 2017. He is so pro. He knows exactly. You might actually get more talking out of him now that he is a special advisor. But that, to me, like, the guy just retired like a week and a half ago. It shows what kind of – no, I wouldn't say give him time. I'm saying, like, it shows what Cashman really thinks of him. Like,
oh, yeah.
To be brought in, like, this dude's a stud professional, how he goes about stuff. And I know Matt Blake really likes him a lot too. And Matt Blake is always the pitching coach for the Yankees. He's always trying to have people around him that he learns from, because they had a connection back in Cleveland too when Matt was doing stuff with Cleveland after he had come over from Driveline. But no, I think that's a awesome pickup, because guys will be able to lean on him, and he's super good looking too, like super jacked. All that stuff is what you need.
All right, final question, because I told you I wouldn't take up your whole night. You've stood up for Gary Sanchez defensively, and the metrics he showed, he had a pretty good year last year with the Padres. He is now with the Pirates, right? Or was it he signed with the Pirates. Yeah. What were your thoughts on Gary Sanchez? Because I know you played with him.
Man, you don't have enough time. You'll be sleeping by the time I'm done. My thoughts, and if you hear on Foul Territory, everyone gives me a hard time because I love Gary, and I think he got a bad rep. I think the easy easy, weak story that even the national media would come in and they'd be like, well, it's just, as soon as the ball would get by him, well, he's just not known for defense. Yeah, okay. Let's pump the brakes with that. Because if you go back and look at his defense, did he have a lot of pass balls? Yes, he had a lot of pass balls. And the reason he had pass balls is because they were telling him to do certain things to try to get more strikes, which the previous season he was really, really good. And now he's going to
Brewers,
not the Pirates. We thought he was going to the Pirates. He's going to the Brewers. Thank you for the chat correcting us. But it was Yasmani Grandal went to the Pirates.
That's right.
It's just like I was saying earlier about Austin Wells defensively being compared to Jose Trevino. You were comparing Gary Sanchez's defense to his offense. He was on pace to be a Hall of Fame catcher the way he was hitting to start his career. And I really think a lot of that stuff got in the way. And I'm not going to blame Yankee fans because I think they really, really like Gary. I'm going to blame the media. I'm going to blame it because he is very introverted. He is a quiet guy. And a lot of long conversations that we had together in spring training, long conversations we had during the season because our lockers were right next to each other. And he really expressed to me what different situations were feeling like to him. Like it felt like he couldn't do certain things right. And that affects other guys. That affects guys way differently than it does, you got to suck it up. It's like, well, yeah, okay, you got to suck it up. But if every single day you hear that you suck at something that you actually don't suck at, because he came up, he had a cannon. And then the reframing stuff came in, and he was getting huge scores on the framing stuff. His rookie year, he was top 10 in the league. And then all of a sudden they were like, well, we need more out of framing. Okay, well, that's great. You need more. Like if Austin Wells has tons of power, they want Austin Wells to have more power. But they sat there and they were like, well, we need more. This is what you should do. And it wasn't the way to teach Gary. And it declined. And then the media crushed it. And then the new guys, and then the new national media comes in. And that's the constantly. Oh yeah, his defense is brutal. I don't agree. And I can show you plenty of things that show me that he should still be a Yankee and he should still be making a lot of money, but it hadn't worked out for him. But I think it's a huge pickup by the Brewers. If it was the Pirates, it would have been a huge pickup too, but we got that wrong.
My thought with Gary Sanchez was that he was the classic case of paralysis by analysis because it seemed like they kept trying to tweak things with him and then he couldn't get back to that original. Like when he first came up, I think it was 2016. He hit about 20 home runs in 2.5 months, and he was on fire defensively. He had a good 2017. I think he had a bit of a down year in 2018, but then he bounced back a little bit with the power numbers at least. And I always thought he was serviceable defensively, but then it got to the point where he took so much criticism that you could tell, like just but from his body language. It's like when you see a guy walking around with his wife and his girlfriend, and she's just constantly criticizing him, and he just doesn't want to speak or say anything. And that's kind of the body language I saw from him. And I just knew it was time for a change of scenery. I've seen enough players where that's happened. Kenny Rogers, as a pitcher. Carl Pavano, everybody got on him because he wouldn't play. Part of that's his own thing because, apparently he was milking some stuff. But there are some guys Joey Gallo, another perfect example, who, maybe he wasn't a great fit for New York, but not everybody has the thick skin to take the beating that New York will give you and that I will give somebody on this podcast if they have an extended stretch of just playing like shit. I think it's easy to take criticism when you're not playing well because you're criticizing yourself. The issue is that I think that happened with Gary is he wasn't playing that bad, but the narrative was that he was playing bad. And then the organization started feeding into that narrative too, in the sense that they fired his catching coach that helped him in the minor leagues and helped him in his transition to the big leagues. And they brought in a catching guru
to try to get value out of him when you already had Higgy, who was giving you tons of value in the receiving department, and that connection needed to be perfect. It's really, really hard to make a connection with somebody that's an elite status player like Gary in just a spring training, in just a year. And so that's tough to do. And that was a big ask of the Yankees to bring in Tanner Swanson. But you know what? Ultimately, the end of the day, and Gary would say this too, it's up to him. He's got to play better, no matter what's going on around him. And, man, if he hits 20 home runs this year, I know you're not getting 20 home runs out of the catching position from the Yankees. So that's a tough amount of offense. And his WAR last year behind the dish was 1.2.
Yeah,
so
good WAR.
That's a big defensive WAR with almost a 1 WAR at the dish. And that's only in 300 at bats. So that's a valuable player.
I think Trevino will give us 1.2 behind the dish for sure. I'm not sure if he's going to give us the offense that Gary would. You know,
yes.
that's part of the conundrum tying this whole podcast together is that, you know, Austin Wells probably would give you close to 20 home runs, but he wouldn't give you the defense, right? So, you know, it's just a tough situation to be in, but we are working from the same notes.
You son of a bitch.
If you're not subscribed to Foul Territory, Erik is on there almost every day. World-class ball buster, both on camera and off camera. Any final thoughts on the Yankees and baseball in general?
They're going to miss Michael King more than you think.
You're preaching to the converted here. I love Michael King. That was a hard one to swallow, but I think as Yankees fans, the general consensus was you can't let him keep you from getting Juan Soto, you know?
But that was going to be my next thing. Every Yankees fan, and I'm probably going to get roasted for this, needs to stand up and applaud Brian Cashman. As much as I'm a Gary Sanchez fan, I'm a Brian Cashman fan. Everything he did this offseason, you could not ask for more. You could not ask him to go and get a high-level mid-tier pitcher in Marcus Stroman. Did it.
Decent price.
That's what I mean. Like, he's a mid-tier – he's your middle-tier pitcher, but he's the highest of the middle-tier pitchers that were available. Got him. He is solidifying your bullpen. Got it. He is bringing back – like, look at this lineup. Like, Brian Cashman has done everything Yankees fans have asked for and more. So if this season doesn't work out, which I think it is going to work out, I am going out on a limb and saying you will see the Yankees in the World Series this year. But if it doesn't work out because it's either World Series or bust, it is not Brian Cashman's fault. No matter what moves he makes or doesn't make, because Brian Cashman doesn't make moves at the trade deadline ever, and that's okay. He has gotten his team to the playoffs so many times, and he did everything possible. So Yankees fans need to stand up and applaud that man.
I will push back on the never doing anything at the deadline because back in 2022, he traded for like 7 guys. They just all ended up having surgery within about, a 6-week period.
Yankee moves at the deadline and Yankee fan moves at the deadline. Like, how did we not go get Mike Trout? Yo, give me a ball. Like, we can't give you a ball, and we're not going to get Mike Trout. Like, those are things that are a little unrealistic. But he has done everything, including, don't forget, he signed the best pitcher available last offseason, Carlos Rodon. Okay?
Yeah.
That is not on Brian Cashman.
We need to see Rodon bounce back this year. Little baseball trivia, since we're on the topic. 20 years ago today, the Yankees made a pretty significant trade. Do you know who it was?
A-Rod.
A-Rod, 20 years ago today. All right, everybody, subscribe to Foul Territory where you can find Mr. Erik Kratz on a daily basis. And we will see you next time.